So we'll just do one more question from the chat. Put that question up for me. Dr. Tina, you board certified emergency medicine. What made you move into functional medicine? Okay, so that's a good question. That's a throwback question. Yeah, I mean, I trained in emergency medicine, board certified. I loved emergency medicine. It was easy. I like the concept. They come in, diagnose, figure out a disposition, and go home. Um, and you do that for a long time, and it gets to be a little heavy. If you know what you're doing, it's easy. And what gets heavy is that it wasn't always emergencies that I was seeing. It was a lot of what we saw in the emergency department were really complications of chronic disease, chronic standard American diseases, diabetes, cardiovascular problems, problems from obesity, leg swelling. I mean, just a bunch of different illnesses and complications that folks were using the emergency room for because there's just no room. And, at the primary care office, they couldn't get an appointment. So it just started, I guess it was just an awareness for me and thinking like, we're doing our part in the emergency room, like what part of the system is broken. And so I started to explore a little bit. While I was in emergency medicine, I became an acupuncturist, and that was interesting. And I was working that alongside my emergency medicine shifts, and that kind of led into sort of a greater picture, a bigger picture of understanding, what healing is really about. It's not always a prescription. Hands-on, it was energy movement, so it was really interesting in that regard. And then, you just get a little older, a little wiser, I suppose, for me. And I just really needed to understand like what was wrong. And what was wrong was the system, was the medical system. It's looking at a symptom and treating the symptom. And it's really not the doctor's fault to a large degree. You have to see so many patients during your office hours. There's a lot of paperwork involved. There's a lot of charting. There's a lot of, note taking, prescriptions, and just a lot of follow through that happens outside of the patient room, right? So it's overwhelming. And so it's hard for a practitioner in that setting to really see the entire picture, to really grasp what's going on in this one person patient's, life and situation, and what's creating the chaos sort of within, right? And leading to this chronic illness. And look, the pharmaceutical companies, big pharma, big food certainly don't help the situation. It makes it really difficult for everyone to be healthy. And this was all stuff that I couldn't address into emergency medicine. So I moved out of acute care, and that was hard for me, but I just felt the calling, it was sort of bigger than me. It chose me. I don't know that I necessarily chose it to move in that direction and really figure out just a different standard of care, a different approach, looking at what works. I mean, to me, all of it, anyone who puts hands on is a healer. So, embracing chiropractic, osteopathic, and, Reiki healers, homeopathy, which still intrigues me. And just sort of thinking outside the box. And that kind of led me to a more office-based practice in New York City. And then I did that for a long time and really loved it, and was really utilizing acupuncture. And then in 2015, I moved down to Florida and became medical director at the Hippocrates Health Institute, and really understood what raw vegan lifestyle was, and what it could do, and how powerful food could be. Eating real food instead of just stuff that fills your belly. So real food, live food, and seeing some serious chronic illnesses get better. So that was another eye opener for me. Thought I was doing everything right when I was in New York, rushing to work, rushing to make sure I had eggs in the morning and protein, amount of protein. So that was a real eye opener for me. And also another, a game changer, right? And sort of led me personally down that path, and then incorporated that into my practice. And then, I just found my niche with women. I love the complexity of caring for women, women's bodies, women's minds, the intricacies of the cycle, the power of our cycle, and how important that is, and really living very primally. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I live as primal as I can. I try to live as non-toxic a lifestyle as I can, and I share that with my patients. That's really where I'm at right now. Can I still identify the emergencies when they call me up? Yeah, totally. Like, you need to get to an urgent care, you need to get to an emergency room. And so, I feel like it's all of it, all of everything that I've studied and everything that I've embraced and what I was good at in the emergency department, it all sort of evolved into where I am right now at this point in my life. And I feel like I'm bringing a lot to the table for a lot of women around the country, around the world. So thank you for that question. Thanks so much. All right, we'll take another one.